know most people move out by 18 or 19, but college was close. Rent was ridiculous. And honestly, staying home just made sense. That weekend, my parents were out of town for my dad's work conference. I had the whole house to myself, something that usually didn't bother me. Our neighborhood was quiet, safe. The kind of place where everyone left their porch lights on and waved when they passed by. Saturday night started out normal. One of my friends came over. We ordered pizza, watched a movie, and hung out for a few hours. Around 11:30, he left, and I remember locking the front door right after he pulled out of the driveway. The house fell silent the moment his taillights disappeared. That there's something about that kind of silence that doesn't hit you right away. It sneaks in slowly, the hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the thermostat. Every little sound suddenly feels louder. I went upstairs, got ready for bed, and started scrolling through my phone. Just mindless stuff, trying to stay awake for a bit before sleeping. Then I heard it, a slow, dragging sound that was subtle at first, like someone moving furniture downstairs. I paused and listened. The sound came again, a long scrape that vibrated through the walls. It wasn't coming from inside. It was coming from outside, right behind the wall near my window. That's where our wooden deck was, the one connected to the kitchen by a sliding glass door. My stomach tightened. That genuinely sounded like someone was dragging a chair across those planks. I got up and turned off my light, so whoever or whatever was out there wouldn't see movement. The only light in my room came from the glow of the street lamp outside. I walked slowly toward the window and peeked through the curtains. There was a man sitting on our deck. He was in one of the patio chairs, facing the house, completely still. I couldn't make out his face, just the dark shape of his body under the orange glow. But I could tell one thing for sure. He was staring straight at my window. I backed away immediately, heart pounding. For a second, I thought it had to be my friend messing around. But when I texted him, he replied right away. "No, dude. I left 20 minutes ago." "Why?" I didn't answer. I just typed back. "Someone sitting on my deck that he tried calling, but I muted it." I didn't want any noise. I stood there frozen, trying to convince myself it was a neighbor or maybe someone lost, until I heard it again. A sound that made my skin crawl, a faint, wheezing laugh. I crept back to the window, careful not to touch the glass, and looked again. He was still there, but now his head was tilted upward, that he wasn't laughing like it was funny. It was this low, breathy sound, the kind that doesn't sound human anymore when you hear it through a wall. That's when I noticed something off. The chair he was sitting on wasn't ours. Our patio chairs had white cushions. This one was barewood, darker, older. He had brought his own chair, my entire body went cold. I backed away, grabbed the baseball bat from my closet, and tried to breathe quietly. Then I heard the sliding door handle rattle, softly at first, then harder. He was trying to open it. Every muscle in my body locked up. I could hear the metal scraping against the frame again and again. Then it stopped. A few seconds later, I heard the sound of footsteps on the porch steps moving around the side of the house. Then the front door handle clicked, slowly, gently. He was testing that one too. I ran into my parents' room, shut and locked the door, and crouched by the window that overlooked the driveway. When I peeked through the blinds, I saw him. A tall man in a dark hoodie, walking slowly along the path to the front yard, trying each door handle as he went. I grabbed my phone and called 911, whispering everything to the operator. She told me to stay quiet and hidden to keep her on the line. For a few minutes, there was nothing, just silence. I started to think maybe he'd left. Then from outside, I heard the faint squeal of the side gate opening. He was heading back to the backyard. My pulse was so loud it drowned everything else out. I could barely focus on what the operator was saying. Then finally, faint but real, I heard sirens in the distance. They got closer. Then red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. I looked out again. The man was gone. The police searched the property, but didn't find anyone. What they did find was worse. There were footprints on the deck, large ones, leading right up to the sliding door. And near the back fence, leaning against the railing, was an old wooden ladder that he hadn't been inside at all. He'd climbed up from the yard. The officer told me they'd had reports in the area of someone trying doors at night, but no one had actually seen him until now. I barely slept after that. When my parents got home the next morning, I told them someone had tried to break in, but I left out most of the details. Even now, years later, I still check the locks twice before bed, sometimes 3 times, because what I learned that night is something I'll never forget. Sometimes, the real danger doesn't break your door down. It waits just outside it, sitting still, watching, hoping you'll come close enough to open it. I was 14 when this happened, and I still think about it every time I'm home alone. My mom was working a night shift at the hospital. She's a nurse, so weird hours are just part of the deal. My older brother was away at college, so it was just me holding down the fort. No big deal, right? I'd been home alone plenty of times before. Earlier that evening, I'd had this girl over. We watched some movies, hung out, nothing serious. Her parents were strict about curfew, so she had to bounce around 10. After she left, I went up to my room, got into bed, and threw on some TV. My bedroom is on the second floor, right above the back deck. So when I heard one of the deck chairs being dragged across the wood, I heard it clear as day. I got up and looked out the window. There was someone sitting in one of our deck chairs, just sitting there, looking up at the house that at my window. I figured maybe she'd come back, maybe forgot something, or her parents weren't home yet. I called out her name. The person looked up at me. It wasn't her. It wasn't anybody I recognized, at least not in the dark. I immediately pulled back from the window, my stomach dropping. Who the hell was sitting on our deck? I grabbed my phone and texted my boys in our group chat, asking if any of them were trying to prank me. The ones who answered right away all said no, and started asking what I was talking about. I didn't really believe it was them anyway. None of my friends would do something that weird. Slowly, I crept back to the window and looked down again. He was still there, still sitting in that chair, still looking up at my window. It was definitely a guy, I could tell that much now, and he'd definitely seen me. I pulled away again and turned off the TV. Oh, I sat on my bed in the dark with my arms wrapped around my knees, trying to figure out what to do. I didn't want to turn my phone screen on because I was scared he'd see the light. I didn't want to move because my window was cracked open and I thought he might hear me. I wanted him to think I'd left the room, that I wasn't there anymore. I sat there for at least 5 minutes, maybe longer. It felt like forever. I finally worked up the courage to check again, thinking there's no way he's still there. Nobody just sits in a stranger's yard for that long. Something inside me died when I looked out and saw him still sitting there, still staring up at my window. I felt like I was going to be sick. Instead of hiding this time, I tried to be brave. I opened the window wider and called down to him. "What do you want?" That's when things got really weird. His shoulders started moving up and down, like he was laughing his DM head off. But no sound was coming out at first. Just this silent, shaking laughter. Then I heard it. This wheezing, whistling sound, like he was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. It was one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard. I told him to please leave and backed away from the window. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone. I didn't call the cops though. I don't know why fear, guess. Confusion. I wasn't thinking straight. I left my room and sat at the top of the stairs listening. That's when I heard it. The back door. He was pushing on it, trying to get in. The handle was rattling, the whole door shaking in its frame. I ran back to my room and locked myself in. I could still hear him down there, trying to force his way inside. Then the sound moved to the front of the house. He was at the front door now, pushing on it, testing it. My heart was beating so fast I thought I was going to pass out. Then everything went quiet. He'd given up. Thank God he'd given up. I closed my window and pulled the curtains shut. If our doors hadn't been locked, I would have been dead or worse. I was skinny as hell at 14, barely 120 pounds. I couldn't have fought off anyone, especially not some grown man who'd been sitting in our yard watching me, laughing at my fear. I didn't leave my room the rest of the night. I just sat there in the dark, listening for any sound of him coming back. When my mom got home around 9 the next morning, I finally came out. I told her everything. She was pissed that I didn't call 911. Looking back, yeah, that was stupid as hell. Really stupid. But in the moment, I was just a scared kid who didn't know what to do. I've thought about that night a lot over the years. What was he planning? What would have happened if the doors hadn't been locked? Why was he laughing like that? The whole thing still creeps me out. My mom wanted to file a police report, but what could I tell them? I never saw his face clearly. Didn't know who he was. He didn't technically commit a crime, just sat in our yard and tried our doors. But I know what his intentions were. I know what that laugh meant, that he wasn't some lost person asking for help. He wasn't confused or drunk. He was testing me, seeing how I'd react, enjoying my fear. And when he tried those doors, he was hoping one would open, hoping he could get inside. I'm 23 now, and I still can't shake that memory. The image of him sitting in that chair, staring up at me in the dark. The sound of his silent, wheezing laugh. The rattling of the door handles as he tried to force his way in. Sometimes I wonder if he ever did that to anyone else. If he succeeded with someone who didn't have their doors locked. If some other kid wasn't as lucky as I was that night. My mom eventually sold that house and we moved. She said it was for other reasons, but I think that night had something to do with it. I know it affected her, knowing her kid was alone and terrified while some psycho tried to break in. She's never left me home alone for long periods since then. Even now that I'm an adult, she checks in way more than she used to. People always say, trust your gut. That night taught me why. My gut told me something was wrong the second I saw someone in our yard. My gut told me not to go outside, not to engage with him beyond yelling from the window. My gut kept me alive, and I've never ignored it since. This happened last winter, when I was still living in my old apartment. It was a small place, second floor of a 3-story complex just outside the city. I'd moved there after graduating college, trying to save money before getting my own house. It wasn't the nicest neighborhood, but it was quiet and for the most part safe. That night I was home alone. My roommate was out of town visiting family, so it was just me and my cat. I'd worked a late shift that day, so by the time I got back it was already dark out. It had been snowing earlier, and the parking lot was covered in that gray slush that freezes overnight. I changed into a hoodie, ordered food from my favorite Thai place, and started a movie. The order came around 8 p.m., nothing weird. I ate, watched the rest of the movie, and then started scrolling on my phone. Just a regular Friday night. Around 9:30, I heard a knock on the door. Not a loud one, just 2 soft knocks. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I froze for a second. The first thought that came to mind was maybe another delivery for one of my neighbors. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a man standing there, middle-aged, wearing a dark jacket with a reflective stripe, like a delivery uniform. He was holding a paper bag with grease stains on it.no restaurant logo and no name tag on his jacket. He smiled a little when he saw me looking through the peephole and said, "Delivery for apartment 2B." That was my apartment. I told him I didn't order anything. He chuckled softly and said, "You sure? Thai food, right?" That caught me off guard because I had ordered Thai earlier, but that delivery had already come, and I definitely didn't order again. I said, "I already got my order an hour ago." He looked down at the bag for a second and said, "Maybe they send a replacement? I can check the receipt if you want." He lifted the bag slightly like he was about to hand it to me. I noticed something weird. The bag looked reused. The top was wrinkled and torn on one side, and I could see a faint dark stain near the bottom. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. "I can come in and check the order number with you. It'll just take a second." The tone he used wasn't rude, but it was too confident, too familiar for a stranger. I didn't answer. I just stood there, hand on the lock, watching him through the peephole. After a few seconds of silence, his smile faded. He looked down the hallway, then back at the door and said quietly, "You sure this isn't 2B?" I didn't respond. He waited another few seconds, then turned and started walking toward the stairwell. I heard his boots on the concrete steps, slow, deliberate, until they faded away. I waited a good minute before I moved. My heart was pounding. I looked out the window to see if I could spot him leaving, but the walkway below was empty. No car. Headlights. That's when I decided to call building security. My complex had a small security team that patrolled the lot and checked doors at night. I told the guard on duty what happened, and he said he'd check the cameras and swing by my unit. He got there about 10 minutes later. He knocked and showed his ID through the peephole before I opened the door. He asked me to describe the guy. Mid-40s, brown hair, scruffy beard, dark jacket with reflective stripes, and a white paper bag. He said he'd check the footage from the hallway camera. A few minutes later, he came back to my door looking uneasy. He said, "That's strange. There's no one in the footage." I asked what he meant. He said the hallway camera didn't show anyone approaching my door at 9:30. No delivery driver, no one at all. The last person seen on that floor was me. Coming home around 7:45. Then he added, "The camera cuts out around 9:25 and comes back at 9:33, right when this guy supposedly knocked." He said the system sometimes glitched, but the timing made him nervous. He stayed with me while I called the police. They showed up pretty quickly, 2 officers who took my statement and checked the area. They didn't find any footprints near my door, but the snow in front of the building had melted just enough that you couldn't tell. They looked around the complex and asked the nearby tenants if anyone else had a food delivery that night. Nobody had. One officer suggested maybe someone had the wrong address. But when I told him about the missing camera footage, he stopped writing and just nodded slowly. They told me to stay somewhere else for the night, just to be safe. I ended up crashing at a friend's apartment across town. The next day, I came back with my landlord to check the locks and review the full security footage. That's when it got even weirder. When the guard pulled the footage from the main entrance camera, you could clearly see every delivery driver entering and leaving the building that night. My real-time delivery guy arrived around 7:58 and left by 8:02. After that, no other delivery drivers entered the building. None. Whoever that man was, he wasn't a delivery driver. He didn't go through the main entrance either. There was a small side door at the back of the building near the maintenance room, usually kept locked. But in the footage, you can see that door creak open around 9:26 p.m., and a man in dark clothing steps inside, holding a paper bag. The timestamp matches the exact minute the hallway camera cut out. The footage doesn't show him leaving. He just disappears from the view. Maintenance later confirmed that the back door lock was old and probably hadn't latched properly in the cold. I moved out 2 weeks later. I didn't even bother waiting for the lease to end. The landlord was understanding after seeing the footage himself. Sometimes I still think about that moment. The way he said, "I can come in and check the order number with you," that IT wasn't just a casual suggestion. It felt like something he'd practiced. He knew my name, my apartment number, and the exact restaurant I'd ordered from that night. The police said it could have been a coincidence, but I don't believe that. Someone knew I was alone. Someone knew I'd already ordered food once that night and used that to make their story believable. It still bothers me to think about what would have happened if I'd opened that door. Maybe he would have just left, maybe not. Now every time there's a knock after dark, I freeze before even moving. I check the peephole, then the window, and I always ask for the person's name through the door. I even have a camera installed above the peephole now, just in case. But sometimes, when it's late and quiet, I imagine hearing that same soft knock again, 2 taps, almost polite. And I think about that bag with no logo, the reused paper, the faint stain near the bottom, and the way his voice sounded calm, steady, like he'd done it before.